Sisters are doing it for themselves. Down with the patriarchy. Hello, and welcome to my channel. I'm Reina Creole, bringing you that spice to sci-fi and pop culture analysis, and of course, keeping it real when it comes to theme parks. And speaking of keeping it real, what you are about to see in this video is my reaction to watching Echo live along with my channel members. So you'll be able to see my reactions, see the reactions of my channel members, and that way you can kind of make up your mind whether or not this latest abomination from Marvel Studios is worth your time. Did she try to slap him with her fist? Man, I got some information to drop to you guys about the Choctaw Nation. Okay, so yeah, we gonna be here for we gonna be here for a little bit. I'm so glad this is freaking over. Why does this remind me of Species? Y'all let me know if I'm off, but I swear that reminds me of the movie Species. We got 5 episodes of crappy writing. Her mom's dead. Disney gotta have a dead parent. Wrapped up in a shield of we want to highlight the Choctaw Nation, and it really does the Choctaw Nation a disservice. It's like, what did we really learn in particular about the culture? Okay, I'm gonna make this comment. So it's okay to show Native people half naked in a Disney series, but not everybody else. Not a whole lot. Not a whole lot. I know she isn't one, but what does OG think of this show? I'm not sure. I haven't really heard anything. One of the things that I don't like when a lot of these Hollywood types talk about Native American tribes and indigenous people, they act as if all the tribes are the same, and they are not the same. And when they tell the story, they seem to tell the very glamorized version of the story. So overall, I would give Echo a 2 out of 10. Okay, so she lost her leg in a car accident. Are you freaking serious? I really do. Overall, the writing, not very good. I love Graham Greene. I love these two
Go
together.
into my office.
I really do.
Empacho na baho.
Cut the crap. I didn't come here to get leg humped by some old rich dog back here.
It's a pleasure to watch his scenes, and I want to say he is the only person who, when he did sign language, he was speaking in his own voice, kind of like what CJ said. It's like his voice didn't change when he signed. If anything, his signing just emphasized his acting. So that worked out. That worked out great. But I would have loved to have seen Echo's power from the comics to be able to copy someone else. I would have loved to have seen that. And if they were going to go with delving into the Choctaw Nation's culture, how great would it be if it were some kind of legend within that culture with a lesson within that Echo had to learn? Face off against Whammon power. Sisters are doing it for themselves. Yep, it's also like that with African people / culture. It's a continent, not a singular country. Yes. Like when they showed that scene when they were all playing lacrosse, and one of them was talking. Okay, so it's in Alabama. All right. Alabama. Okay. The nearest tribe as far as I remember, for the Choctaws in Alabama would have been the Creeks. The Cherokee were up in the Carolinas, possibly as far south as Georgia, but no, not no, they just weren't there. So they got that messed up. They got that part not right. But it's interesting when they talk about the Choctaw Nation, I noticed they didn't say anything about the Trail of Tears, which is a devastating story, but could have been a very powerful one of survival and of perseverance. They could have did that, but they didn't. Choctaw women were the first first third wave feminists. And that's another issue that I have with this. With most Native American tribes, at least, well, we'll talk about the ones that I know about, like the Seminole and the Choctaw and the Creeks. While women had their defined role and men had their defined role, they both worked together. There wasn't the shaming of men for being men. Men had their place, had their honored place, as women had their honored place. It was a balance. But this, you would think that the only people who had power in the Choctaw Nation were women. And I got a big problem with that. LRC, you make a better writer than the writers on this show. I know when I don't know something to ask the people who know more. If I'm watching this, especially if it's something related to history or to heritage, I would like for people to get it right. I really would. I just can't. I see what they were trying to do, but it could have been executed much better than it was. I have the same attitude that I have towards Wakanda Forever. I have towards this series. But while I was talking about the Choctaw Nation, I said I was going to give you guys some information about my my family history. But before I do that, let me show you this really quick. And it's interesting how this is not brought up in the show. The Choctaws owned slaves. Prior to the removal of the Choctaws on the Trail of Tears, the Choctaws had been exposed to Africans in their native homeland of Mississippi. That's where my family is from. Slaves were a part of European culture to which the Choctaws would later adopt. Slavery would be one of the institutions that the nation would adopt. Let's see. I'm going to screw this up. Chief Marshal Abitabi had slaves, as did many of the Europeans who married into the nation. Okay. So even when slaves were freed, okay, there were still barriers thrown up against them trying to get officially into the Choctaw Nation. And they finally adopted former slaves as citizens into their nation in 1885. So before that, before signing a particular Treaty of 1866, signed in Fort Smith, Arkansas, requiring that the Choctaws release their Africans from bondage. And after signing the treaty, many in the nation pressed to have the freedmen removed from the Choctaw Nation. So they were pushing to have, you know, people that they had enslaved, wanted them kicked out of the Choctaw Nation. And if you're wondering why the heck is it in 1866? Well, that's because the Choctaws actually fought on the side, or we'll say some of them decided to fight on the side of the South in order to keep their slaves. So in 1866, of course, Mississippi, the whole blockade, Sherman's march to the sea, and all of that. Yeah. So that's what happened. So you had Choctaws who were fighting for the Southern cause. So basically, that they could keep their slaves. Yes. You notice that wasn't talked about, but they sure as heck made sure to mention in that black and white flashback of the stereotypical 19th century white men coming after them. They made sure to highlight that, but not to highlight the slaves that some of them had. Interesting. Very, very interesting, because they want to portray the Choctaw as, I will say this, as perpetual victims. I'm like, if you're going to tell the truth, you need to tell it all. But that probably won't be good for viewership, and that wouldn't be good for them trying to set up the Choctaws as, again, perpetual victims. The white men are against us. That wouldn't work, would it? But to tie this to my family history really, really, really quick, my fifth great grandfather, his name was William Poe. He came from South Carolina to settle in Mississippi, Wayne County, which was in Indian Territory, Choctaw Indian Territory, which later became, I think, like Buckatuna, Mississippi, something like that. I'd never heard of the place. All I know is when I did DNA testing, I was related to like a group of 100 people who all trace their ancestry back to William Poe. But the interesting thing about William Poe, yes, he was a slave owner. I'm not getting any reparations money. Okay, I'll just tell you that right now. He was a slave owner, and William was very successful and had a plantation with many slaves. Buckatuna area was Indian Territory. Chief Pushmata, a Choctaw, did not like the whites or the blacks, but William was able to gain the chief's respect because of his great success. Chief Pushmahata did not like blacks because he felt superior to them. He did not realize that the whites felt the same superiority towards Indians. William honored Chief Pushmata by having the slaves stand and fan him as well as wipe his mouth as he ate. Yeah. My fifth great grandfather did this. They became friends. After a period of time, the Indians began to do some swapping of blacks and other supplies with the whites. They traded grain, furs, and other commodities, including slaves. So, from people who know this history in my family, they regaled me this story years ago, and I thought that I would just not have to come back and check it out. But to find out that I had a fifth great grandfather who not only sold slaves to the Choctaw Indians, but entertained a chief, that gives me a whole nother angle or whole different kind of lens to view the Choctaw Nation, or the version that Marvel would have us believe. If you're going to tell the truth, or you're going to dip into what you deem as a victim class, tell the whole story. I mean, there's misery and struggle in every race on this earth, and there are stories that are powerful and lessons in those stories. Tell us those particular lessons so we can take something away rather than virtue signal something. So it's just there to look at and for you to preach to us. I mean, it's just something else. So that's why I feel some kind of way about this show. Inconvenient. Yeah, very, very. And these are very inconvenient facts. Never think less of you for anything your ancestors did, and I mean that. Oh, thank you, because man, I tell you, when people say, when people ask me, what is your family's legacy? I said, well, part of it is human trafficking, literally. But that, that aside, they could have did much better with this. Gave us a real story with real stakes. I think that they sold this with just the over the top violence for no reason. The Netflix Daredevil series had violence, but there was a reason and a rationale for that violence. Not in this. So again, overall, I give the series a 2 out of freaking 10. I'm not interested in seeing it again. I love, like I said, I love Graham Greene. I love the lady who played the grandmother. I'm pissed that they didn't get them back together. Why they had to bust them up in the first place. Can't have a strong nuclear family. Can't have can't have that. And now I see why they dropped all 5 episodes at the same time. Because would you come back week after week to watch this show? I wouldn't. I'm telling you, one of the things that Marvel needs to really get together is they need to get their act together and stop with this MCU nonsense. It's not that we don't want female characters. It's not that I don't want female characters. I want well-written female characters where the story draws you in and the rest is just icing on the cake. It's one of the reasons why I love Black Widow, one of the reasons why I love Jean Grey, you know. The X-Men that had Patrick Stewart and Halle Berry in it, let's put it that way. Y'all are just going to continue to lose audience share with stuff like this. And I would not be surprised if this series does not continue. If it does, I'm going to clown it when it comes out. How many total episodes are there? 5. And it felt like 50. Totally felt like 50. So, yeah. Again, 2 out of 10. This was freaking painful to watch. More painful than I want to say to watch than Ahsoka. And interestingly enough, this also dropped on Hulu. So they're trying to get this out there, but don't fall for it. If folks ask if you should see this, I say no. No. Just go watch Hawkeye and then go watch the Daredevil series that was on Netflix, which I think they just put on Disney Plus. This was just I would say it's a total waste of time, but it's never a total waste of time to hang out with with my channel members and to have you guys roast this along with me. So thank you all so very much for hanging out with me with this roast party for Echo. You guys are amazing. Thank you so much for supporting me. And for those of you watching this review on YouTube, please make sure you hit that like button. Please make sure that you hit subscribe. And I will see you next time. Down with the patriarchy!